Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, Controlled Chaos. Controlled Chaos. Here we are, seated before many individuals, and our job is to speak a truth that is going to be cutting. Our job is to tell them something that they really don't want to hear, but is beneficial, whether it's in the short term or in the long term. In this hypothetical example, these people are not going to sit down and agree with everything you say. Instead, they're going to stand up, they're going to yell, they're going to curse, they're going to call you any number of names. Let's just say that in the audience, some of these individuals are your family members and friends, but you said something that made them so upset to the point that some of them are saying things like, I will not leave you with anything. You are banned from the family. Don't ever call me again. Don't show up. This sort of thing on a small scale has happened to some of my listeners. They said something that was a cutting truth that someone did not want to receive. And so they were met with opposition, and they had to end up separating themselves or being pushed out of their circles, okay? But they're happier as a result. They're closer to the one true God. They're stronger in their minds, okay? They're no longer being controlled. Let us move this setting to a boardroom where there are very powerful individuals. And you say something that rubs them the wrong way. And they know that what you're saying, if it gets out there, is going to impact their long-term financial goals. Someone or all of them are going to push back. They're going to ask questions in a condescending way. They're going to name call. They're going to threaten. They're going to do any number of things because you are going to keep your mouth shut. And some of my listeners, this sort of thing has happened to them. The lie grew legs. The lie impacted so many individuals to the point where they can't even see the truth. The people who orchestrated the chaotic events, the confusion, the distractions, and so on and so forth, they know what the long-term goals are. They also know what the short-term goals are to get some people to do their bidding. There are those who are the control group. These are the ones who may not go along with programming. These are the ones who may rise up and say no. These are the ones that are in your family that know some truths about your family, but they're the black sheep. And you may have been warned not to talk to them. Why? Why is there such a push not to talk to those people? Why is there such a push to get these mainstream media events in front of you and to make you do something while at the same time telling you that you have a choice? Really? Because you don't know what the long-term goals are. You don't know the short-term goals. You don't even know how things are going to be in the next day, the next week, months, years from now. But God does. God does, and God does the unexplainable. God does the types of things that man cannot label. God does the type of things that there is no definition. Man tries to define. Man tries to make sense of some things. But when he tries and he doesn't like what he is receiving, then he wants to just say, that's stupid, that's dumb, that's nonsense, right? That's conspiracy. Oh, stay with me. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I've said this in other audio. But when we do know what we're talking about, and we do know that we're responsible for information, we're responsible for truth, God has used us mere vessels, we got to do what we have to do. Even if it starts with just one person in the room. Because I care about you and I love you. And I also am fearful of the one true God. That's why I have to tell you this as a parent, as a grandparent, says a friend, says a co-worker, a sister or a brother from an organization. So you've been lying all this time? You've been telling some people one thing, but you really knew something else? Oh, those conversations are coming. There's going to be some very angry people. There's going to be some people that are going to do some unthinkable things because the nerve of you. And the people who do these sorts of things are not accountable to the one true God. Because one thing about it, the devil, it's okay for he or she to play other people, but when the devil himself is played, oh my goodness. Literally, all hell is going to break loose. And so, it's not in some people's best interest to say too much of anything because they know that they've been lying for so long. They've been covering up for so long. They've been having their share of challenges, difficulties, pain, upset, confusion, issues that they've never had before. But because they stood out there and they said all sorts of things, now they've got to control situations. They've got to control events. They've got to control others who speak. You see? So, create chaos. There's a problem over here. There's an issue over there. There's someone who's battling with this and another one who's dealing with that. And if your mind is here, there, and everywhere, and there's so many manufactured events going on around you, you're not going to spend too much time on the things that you need to question. You're not going to do the necessary research because a lazy man doesn't want to do that sort of thing, or an overwhelmed mind doesn't want to do that sort of thing, or a man that I'm too tired, I'm already going through my share of issues, I don't need to know nothing else. Okay. And you're responsible for that ignorance. You're responsible for what happens now or in the future. But the controlled chaos that some individuals know that at any given moment, they can draw some people back in. They can sit some people out. They can do any number of things. Until results are where they want them to be, the chaotic will continue to occur. The arguments, the fussing, the fighting, and so forth will continue. It's a great distraction. In some cases, it's quite profitable. Some of us, we saw controlling behavior many years ago. That's why it's very easy to spot it. For some of you all, you didn't spot it back in the day. You still don't spot being controlled now. And you definitely won't be able to see the writing on the wall in the future. Because they got you right where they want you. From the family to the boardroom. The patriarchs and matriarchs controlled chaos. And how did some of them do this? The abusive ones especially. How did they do this? They had to win the trust and the favor of a select few. They had to use various lies, secrets, and cover-ups. They had to keep some people under thumb They had to scare some people, some of them, to death. They had to withdraw money, withdraw assets, mark folk. And these sorts of tactics are nothing new under the sun. We see it in the Bible. We see it in media. We see it at the workplace. The devil is doing his thing, stirring up all sorts of chaos, because we can't afford for them to know the truth, he says to his people. He says to the person who sits down in a room and chants and meditates and brings about all sorts of interesting curses and so forth. Because just as we got children of light who will draw near to the Lord and they will meditate and so forth, we also got children of darkness who do the same thing. They got their share of false gods and false god worship. And so that's why for some of you all, no matter what you say, it doesn't penetrate. One particular individual that I listened to, a doctor a while back, goes by Dr. Muhammad. You know, we give some people the benefit of the doubt. We listen to the truths that they have uncovered and the research and so forth. And he said that he coined a term, agitated denial. When you speak to someone and you tell them the truth, right? And they start with all of their denying and go right back to doing what they always have done. They go right back to acting as if they never heard that truth. You see. And some folks over the years, I got to see this firsthand when I said, I believe in God. And then as time went on, as I got closer to him, I said, do you know that God talks? And they were like, God don't talk every day. Oh, so you putting a time limit on how often God talks. Maybe he was talking to me during that period of my life so much because there were some conversations that he needed to catch me up on because I had ignored them for so long. Come on. And some of you all, you're new believers and you get the pushback. You got some folks who they got their way of creating all sorts of arguments and so forth because they don't want you to speak to them. So they've controlled certain topics by orchestrating all sorts of pushback and arguments and attitudes and mean-spiritedness and things like that so that you won't keep coming around. And for some of you all, you're fighters, so you keep coming back and you keep saying things. But you need to take all that over to the one true God because there's so many other people that would receive what you have to say. You know. Because that's what I learned over the years. I said, you know, I'm talking to these people, you know, and I keep going round and round. And the Lord said, there's so many other people that you could talk to. You don't need to continue to talk to these folks. They've heard it. They've been here on the planet before you got here. They know who I am. They've been in the churches. They prayed. And some of them, they stopped praying. And just like you're going to answer to me, the Lord says, they're going to answer to me too. Now keep it moving. You see, because sometimes that's what it takes is God to be right there, meeting you right where you are, to tell you that right now you're being led astray. You're being manipulated into going down this rabbit hole. You're being told that this is where you need to go. This is what you need to do. And they're telling you that these issues are important when technically speaking, they're really not important, but they made them important because they don't want you going over here to where the real information is. They don't want you listening to the people who have the statistics, the people who are boots on the ground, the people who have the evidence and proof that what they're saying in mainstream media is not factual, is not correct, while they're accusing other people of, spreading so-called lies and false information, when you know how the liars do. They got to sit up there and tell you that these people over here, the control group, are flakes and they don't know what they're talking about and blah, 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 while the other folks over here, in the grand scheme of things, they just want everybody to do as they're told. Just follow what we tell you and nobody will get hurt. But that's a lie. Look at some of the movies. Some of the movies, right? There's the guy who says, if you just do this, you don't have to worry about anything. And then the next thing you know, thieves are turning against thieves. I thought you said, a liar's not going to be straight up with you. When there is a long history of cover-ups about all sorts of topics, what makes you think that suddenly they're not going to do that in this situation or in that one or with this topic or that one? Police. You see, but because some folks have done some things, they don't want to admit that they've been played. And then you got some folks who, they're not doing things, but the information surrounding why they're not doing some things is convoluted as well. Chaos, man. It's controlled. Throw out this information, but then throw this crazy making information out there too, because in this way, certain folks won't, believe what these people are saying. And then if they run away with it, then, hey, this is good. This is real good. Because then, they'll be less likely to follow the leader, so to speak. And then let's throw some information out over here, you see. And then those that are questioning some things, well, wait a minute, why are we doing all of this? And they say, listen, it's controlled chaos, right? We got to get certain results. And we're not going to get certain results if we don't say this, if we don't do this, if we don't tell the people this, if we don't have them fighting up against each other, if we don't make this an us versus them, you see. And then, of course, all the psychological manipulation so that you see someone in the mirror that is ugly and mean and dark and disturbed and sickly and, whatever else on one day, and then another day you see this person who is, together and sober-minded, and you see, and what's up with the flip-flop from one day to the next? Once again, control chaos. And what flips you back and forth is what you put in your body. Individuals who have long struggled with all sorts of illnesses, with all sorts of things that they have put in their body, they know what the short-term and the long-term effects, what they have told other people to do. And then they didn't want to take responsibility, so they learned how to disassociate or disconnect from. You see, false prophets will do that in a minute. False prophets will tell you, I know that God said, I know that you need to do, and don't tell me anything different, right? They got to get all animated and crazy acting and whatever else, and scare you half to death, or, some folks will do this sort of thing. But then when bad stuff happens, where you at? Yo, come on out here. That's how the street want to deal with you, false prophet. Yo, what's up? Come on out. I want to talk to you. You been telling these people this, that, and the other? But, no, but. Where your God now? Your God told my mama this. Your God told my daddy this. My sister, my brother. And now you not paying for these problems? You not coming over here helping? You're not taken care of? You see, because it's coming to that. Okay? That is a prophetic for someone. It doesn't sound nice, does it? It doesn't sound like what you're accustomed to. But this is what happens when you thought that you had something under wraps, minister, deacon, evangelist. This is what happens when at times folks are being paid large sums of money to be a part of the chaos. And then people start following money trails. How'd you get that new roof? How'd you get, that nice car? How'd you get your mortgage paid? I noticed that your conversation has changed lately. All before you were saying this and now you're saying that. See, I pay attention to things. I observe. I sit back. I watch. And when I hear something that's off, and I'm talking about the kind of things that got big agenda behind it, that smells foul. I got a nose for news. But it's not that kind of news that's popular. That's going to win large numbers. Control chaos. When we look at it, there are those that are behind the chaos that will lead people astray from the truth. They will continue to fight, to hide, to cover up, to charm even. I got a sweet deal for you. Come over here. I want to talk to you about it. I want to tell you a few things about this, that, and the other. And some people will go, okay, because they know once again the draw is to make people feel comfortable, to make people feel like everything's going to be okay when it really isn't. There are those that feel like they know what's in your best interests. There are those who we've done many, many studies, and let me tell you what the future looks like. And so therefore we have to control events so that these outcomes don't show up. But see, if you get God involved, God says, I got enough resources. I don't need you, man, getting involved in my business. But it doesn't look like it. Once again, I've got enough resources. I don't need you to interfere with my order. And so this is where man doesn't realize this. That one who considers himself to be quite intelligent, he doesn't realize this, but you have become an enemy of God. There were those back when you were a child who controlled your life. And it was supposed to be in your best interest. And for some of you all, it was. But for others, it wasn't. Because their type of control was about breaking you down in such a way so that you would be obedient to them and their goals, whether good, bad, or otherwise. And when you no longer served them, they pushed you out or pushed you away or talked mean-spirited about you or whatever, because they didn't understand, especially when God got a hold of you, what he was doing with you. Man always pushes back on things that he doesn't understand, particularly when it comes to the one true God. Once he gets a little bit of understanding, he doesn't push back as much. Once he sees the benefit to himself or to those that he cares about, then he's more willing to accept, even if it is wrong, even if it is going to send him to his grave sooner rather than later. Then, of course, when truth gains momentum, now the stories show up that are supposed to teach you a lesson, like the parent who sits back and, has a lesson for you. Because you did this, look, these are the consequences. Well, some of you all, I don't know if you paid this attention, but you're being treated like children when you're receiving some of these media stories. Shall we share this story with the children about why they need to or they ought to? And let us put out an example as to why they should. Because our pockets are a little light these days. Because our goals are not being met as fast as we would want our goals to be met. I'm seeing people on a cliff jumping over. Nobody around to talk them off the cliff. That had already happened. Excuse me. I need you to stop doing what you're doing. So get away from that cliff. But no. Right now, you're a little bit out of your mind. Get away from that cliff. Well, God is moving those people, those voices, in a direction where those who are not at the cliff can be reached. But the ones who are already at the cliff, they jumping over. Nothing that was said penetrated. No type of statistical data made them think otherwise. All of the examples of the bad stuff that happened. Okay, so that's what you want to do. They have one-track minds. I call these people, like back in 1997, when I told some of you about some sketches and things that I did back then. And one particular individual said, well, there was so much stuff that happened between 1997 and now, 2021. So, I mean, really, that could have been anything. I said, no, there were specific details that weren't being shown back during those years that I drew back then that they showed in 2020. And there was no way that I would have been able to know some of those things unless, of course, there was divine interference. So please don't try to discredit me or belittle me, But some individuals, because they have their own share of control chaos that's going on around them, that some of them orchestrated themselves. Anything you say, anything you do, will be held against you. And so they'll punish you for the truth while they head over to the cliff and jump off. These people with no faces, that's what I called them back in 1997. Now, here we are. And they're just jumping one by one over the cliff. And when they fall down, there's words, all sorts of negative words again. Just like those folks who had the crooked crown sitting next to those that were average Joes before they started walking toward a path of light. There were words. And here we are again in the spiritual realm. The people with no faces are jumping over the cliff into a pile of words. And these words aren't scrambled up where you can't read them. These words, I see them. They're in black and white. Depression. Blood. Pain. Headaches. Aneurysms. Lies, deceit, divorce. jumping right into a pool of all sorts of chaos that had been controlled, brought about, manufactured. Financial loss, money, devastation, tragic news, wildfires, flooding, winter storms, blackout, grids out, sexually transmitted disease, or as nowadays, sexually transmitted infections. Jumping right into that. And then once they hit bottom and the words rise up, because impact, right? When you fall down and there's loose things around you, they tend to raise up, right? The words raise up. Jesus. Lord. Sometimes the news is too much to bear for me. And then I have to fight to concentrate. And because I'm feeling like this right now, it's because, too, some of these folks are close. When the prophetic comes about and the visions and so forth, when they are about someone else who's further away, I don't feel so overwhelmed. I don't feel as emotional. But when it's close to home, sometimes it's hard to concentrate. You see. But they jump over the cliff and they land into the words, some of which I communicated to you already. And the words, they rise up and then fall down. And these arms are raised wanting help. And on the other side of the area where they've jumped down, there's another cliff. And there's these folks with the crooked crowns with no faces looking down at them. And of course, I told you all in my visions, the crooked crowns are those who are the so-called favorites, the A-listers, those who people know their names, they're big, important, whatever you want to call them. But in the eyes of God, they're just like average Joes. And they're just looking down. And they're watching. They're studying. They're waiting for the results. And then they walk away and they consult with those that are in lab coats. Jesus, help us all. Jesus, help us all. Let us take a moment to pray. And I'm not going to pray out loud. I'm just going to take a moment of silence. And that moment of silence is for those that we lose in the future. for a variety of events. It's not just what mainstream media or what, some folks have told you, and what I've even mentioned on this channel here and there. It's for a variety of things that these people leave. And of course, that's because of cover-ups, right? That's because there's always the agenda behind the agenda. One size can't fit all. You got to have a multitude of events, right? We've been saying that for years. It's got to happen all at once. I feel like these days came too quick, I feel like this season just showed up way too fast. Because we talked for so long about all sorts of topics. But now the heavy hitters are showing up. The national issues, you see. And I was telling some people in past audio some years back, I said, I need you all to understand the family part of challenges and how the demonic works. That, so that you can be able to understand the national and the international, so that we could move on and get into the prophetic, like what the major prophets that came long before we got here did, because that's what eventually God does. And some of you all, you caught hold of how the narcissistic in the family operates. And you caught hold of those past messages, the fundamentals, the 101 when it comes to being saved, sanctified, Holy Spirit filled, the childhood Bible stories and so forth. You caught a hold of those and you learned some lessons from those. But every now and again, we've got to get into the topics that are on a broad scale that groups keep putting in front of you, so that you will toe the line, so that they can, of course, get their results. So, another heavy message, another one for some individuals to use as confirmation that you need to go full speed ahead. You need to do whatever it is that God has called you to do to bring about truth. And know that God has His reasons. Once again, a heavy message. I thank you as always for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. You've been listening to YouTube Venom Enterprise 7. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment. We do welcome giving on this channel. And thank you in advance.